The following podcast may contain adult language and conversations revolving around situations not suitable for immature audiences. Spoilers and general political incorrectness can often be expected, so listener discretion is advised.
They must be destroyed on sight!
All right, we're back. Another episode of They Must Be Destroyed on Sight, a movie podcast. I am your recovering host, Lee Russell. If I break out into fits of coughing that I can't edit out of the podcast in any good way, that's the reason why. I'm really sick. I am joined by my not sick co-host, Daniel Harper, at least not sick physically.
I don't have a cough. I mean, sick is a relative term, really. But.
Yeah, but how are you doing today, sir?
Doing well, hanging out. Been watching some movies, enjoying some Jess Franco.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to talk about that.
Yeah, we got two Jess Franco movies to do tonight. Very interesting suggestions, not just from Daniel, but from one of our listeners. Who was it again? It was
Henry, wasn't it?
It was Henry, yes, who suggested at least one of the films on this list on our episode. So we do have some listener feedback we're going to get to here, and we're going to talk about what we've watched in the last little while. Paul is supposed to be here. He has not showed up yet. He is either on his way or he's decided to watch the Joy Luck Club and skip the podcast. So apparently, Jess Franco, naked women, murder, not his wheelhouse at all. So
not something he's interested in, apparently.
Yeah.
So I don't understand it, but hey, the more the merrier.
All right, so we will get to our feedback here. After shaming him a few episodes back, Greg has come back. He's just hit the ground running with some comments here. So going to our Zardos episode, first he says, shame this isn't a video podcast. You could have all done it in your red diapers. Well, we actually did do it in our red diapers. You just didn't see it. That's all there is to it. But we were very comfortable. And we all got to see each other, so that's all that's important.
I was playing with my nipples the whole time. I mean, it was a thing. Lee was into it. Hugh seemed a little uncomfortable, but Lee was he was smiling the whole time. It was great.
Yeah, it was. I mean, Daniel, like David Bowie, the late David Bowie, has nipple antennae. So he was sending messages. It wasn't anything erotic. It was just like, I get the message. I get the message you're sending me.
That's how we do the back channel conversations on this podcast. That's how we like suggest movies to each other, is through my nipple antennae. It's the thing.
Yeah, that's how it works. All right, he's got more to say here, and actually I'm going to get Daniel to read the rest of these comments, because if I try to go for any period of time, I'm just going to cough up a lung. So,
yeah, finally making me do some work on this podcast there, Lee. I do not appreciate this. It's a really bad thing for me. So, Greg has to say about Zardoz. Interesting how Connery went from being, quote-unquote, the man every woman wanted to sleep with in the 60s Bond era to a murderer and pseudo-rapist in this. Guess he went to extremes not to get typecast. I could certainly see this as being a movie that film critics could spend forever analyzing, but taken as more of an entertainment product, I think it was just okay. What I did enjoy it more for was what it represented. As Daniel pointed out, it's a 70s pre-Star Wars sci-fi dystopian film, and I always find those interesting as they offer us an idea of what society predicted the future to be. This being an era that was on the tail end of the Vietnam War and in the midst of an oil crisis, it's not surprising that this and similar movies portray the future as being so dirty and non-redeemable. It's what makes the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Last House on the Left feel like they actually have a hate-on for the audience watching. This movie actually reminded me quite a bit of A Boy and His Dog. Similar setting, similar secret society, and a similar not quite happy ending. Zardoz certainly did have a lot of thought put into it, even though I think it failed to do a great job putting a lot of those thoughts on the screen. Whomever suggested this might be better as a book is probably correct. I think that was me.
That's right.
And the multitude of random breasts on screen were certainly appreciated. Cheers and have a happy new year.
I think he's pretty much just in agreement with everything we had to say about the film, honestly. And I think he's right. There was definitely a sort of a cynical vibe through just about everything coming out of the Vietnam era, like just out of the tail end of it. So it wasn't surprising to see this stuff popping up. And actually, even just during the Vietnam era, there was a lot of just really dire 70s and 60s science fiction that was like really nihilistic.
Yeah, no, I mean there's this certain kind of post, Nixon really fucked up science fiction, really, and over in the UK, the kind of rise of Thatcher, the conservatism, this kind of idea that like we had this kind of big like liberal, we're all going to get along kind of idea. And then once shit started hitting the fan with Vietnam and with the death of MLK and RFK, and basically the optimism kind of fell from people's eyes. And I think that was a negative time in general in terms of like kind of what people thought the future was going to be. In fact, I've got at least one film that kind of touches on this that I'm going to talk about in the what we've been watching section. But I really love the science fiction of that period, just because in that pre-Star Wars era, you really got some of these really kind of interesting, thoughtful pieces, even if they were kind of dystopic or dark or kind of grim. And then kind of the rise of the blockbuster meant all of that went away, basically. Yeah. And you just got either remakes of Star Wars or later remakes of Mad Max. So congratulations.
And now he moves on to our best of 2015 that we watched show. And he has some thoughts on our Movie God game that we played on that episode, and then he goes into his top 10. So I'll get you to read that as well for us, Daniel.
Sure. On our Movie God we played, he said, Harrison Ford versus Mel Gibson. I'd easily remove Gibson. I'm a big Lethal Weapon fan, not as much of a Mad Max fan, but still enjoy them. But otherwise, there isn't too much else of his I would miss. On the other hand, Harrison Ford has starred in some of my favorite movies of all time, including Star Wars, Blade Runner, American Graffiti, and Indiana Jones, so I couldn't get rid of him. He says Leonardo DiCaprio versus Guy Pearce. I don't really have anything against Guy Pearce, but I also don't really care much about the movies he's been in. On the other hand, Leonardo DiCaprio is, for my money, one of the best actors currently out there, and I would keep him around just for his Scorsese movies, not to mention his work with Tarantino and Nolan. Hell, I just watched The Revenant the other day, and he was great in it. So I gotta strongly disagree with you guys here. I'd get rid of Guy.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. You're wrong. You're wrong, but that's all right.
You're allowed to be wrong. I mean, just keep listening. We're fine,
Yeah.
I mean, I think we belabored that enough, so I'll just move on to the his top 10, if that's okay.
Yep.
He says, I don't watch as many movies as you guys do, and I watch movies primarily for entertainment. So movies that make me think too much, try to push a social, he says agency, but I think he means agenda, or have ambiguous plots don't necessarily appeal to me. With that being said, these are the 10 movies that entertain me the most this year. 10, Furious 7 and 9, Jurassic World, car porn, and dinosaur porn. I put these together as they appeal to me for the same reason. They are both fun and gimmicky action movies that stay entertaining throughout.
Wait, was it called Furious 7 and 9?
Oh, it looks like he's... okay, he says 10, Furious 7, and then 9, Jurassic World, because then he goes on to 8. So he's Furious 7 and Jurassic World. Okay. Sorry, that was confusing on text, so it was confusing when I said it out loud. But I like an idiot, just read what was in front of me instead of actually processing it and trying to understand what it was saying. Reading comprehension is not my strong suit.
Well, that series is terrible for naming its movies, so that's why I was confused.
Right. 8, Just Before Dawn. Of all the movies I watched for your podcast, this is my favorite one that I watched for the first time this year. I'm fairly well versed on American 80s slasher movies, and this one caught me off guard. I'd never even heard of it, but I watched it and enjoyed it, albeit probably not as much as you guys did. And I quite liked the twist about the killer and the final deep throat kill.
Yeah.
7, Mad Max Fury Road. Really enjoyed the setting and practical effects, but I also didn't like this one as much as seemingly everyone else did. It's a very good movie, but I wonder if the praise for it stems from the fact that action movies are so mediocre nowadays as opposed to the merits of this movie alone. I would argue with you on that one, but...
I think that's one to come back to in like 5 or 10 years and then really consider it. So
action movies suck these days. That kind of depends on. I mean, you put Furious 7 on your list already.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Movies suck. I mean, there are 2 great action movies on my list from this year, but come on, movies suck these days. Let's see. 6, he says Unfollowed.
Oh God.
I expected this one to suck, but I ended up loving it. While not as good as It Follows, the seemingly dumb premise ends up working really well, and the movie is super entertaining and genuinely thrilling until the very end. I don't know this one at all.
This is the one that is... It's basically a found footage film that is all recorded on Skype conversations. It's, Greg, what the fuck are you smoking, dude? Or how much have you been drinking? Because I watched this a little while ago, and I just haven't brought it up in the podcast because I just don't want to be that negative on the podcast.
Well, apparently, I need to watch this thing, and we can talk about it.
I think we have to.
Episode 47. Let's do it. Done.
Yeah,
all right.
Okay.
All right. 5. The Revenant. Very well done movie, and again proves my theory that Leonardo DiCaprio is one of the best actors currently out there. The bear attack is pretty grisly. Sorry for that.
Wah.
Rim shot.
Mm-hmm.
4. It Follows. Not only the best horror movie of the year, but the best new horror movie in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I loved the plot, the monsters, and how the director really has an eye for doing some creepy shots. Whoever is backlashing against this movie is probably the same kind of person that won't drink Bourbon County because they're owned by a big company.
Good analogy there. I like that.
Edit. I recently watched The Martian after I made this list. I would slot that movie right at number 4 as I really liked it. Best of these stranded in space with a crazy high CG budget movies I've seen in the last few years. Don't think I'd classify it as a comedy, though.
I am so confused by how that got classified as a comedy for the Golden Globes. I don't know what the fuck's going on there.
I don't give a shit about the Golden Globes, so I'm just going to move on. 3, Creed. I'm a big fan of the Rocky franchise, although many of the 80s and 90s ones fall under the fun-to-watch category, most of them the good movie category. This one is a legitimately great movie and succeeds at not only being essentially a remake of the first film, but also an excellent endpoint for the entire series. I'm hoping this doesn't get a sequel, even though I'm sure it will.
I want to see that one.
Yeah, I'm behind. I didn't see the Rocky Balboa one either, so...
yeah, me neither.
2, Star Wars The Force Awakens. I'm a big Star Wars nerd and very biased. I love this movie. While I didn't hate the prequels, they did have a lot of issues. While not a perfect movie, this one has taken the series back in the right direction and gives me a new hope for the future of this series under Disney. I'm also happy that it still feels like Star Wars, unlike the new Star Trek movies, which do not feel like they fit the source material.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to go back to saying J.J. Abrams had got practice. He already made 2 Star Wars movies before making this one. They were just they just had starred Captain Kirk, so, you know.
Yeah.
Number 1, The Hateful Eight. This is my favorite film of the year. I'm a big Tarantino fan, although not my favorite of his. It hits all the right notes. It's a testament to the writing when 3/4 of the film is just dialogue and has me to the edge of my seat the entire time. But when the violence happens, oh boy, does it happen. I'll also point out how Tarantino has the balls to end the movie in a way that many will find distasteful and offensive, something I'm sure Daniel will have an opinion on when he sees it. This is a fantastic film.
Also say that he sort of ends the movie on in an expected way. I think that's maybe the biggest fault of the film, but I won't get into it. We'll discuss it at some point.
I'm going to have to see this film very, very soon so I can chat about this. So, yeah. All right. Cool.
All right.
Is that all the comments we have?
Yeah, that's all the comments. Right. Thank you very much, Greg. And now we're going to get into what we've watched in the last little while. And I'll start off first just to give Daniel a little bit of a break. And hopefully I won't break into a fit of coughing here, because I don't have notes to share with Daniel, so he can just read what I've watched. So
really, you just write what you want to say, and I'll just speak both sides into the microphone. So you know.
Yeah, it'd be great if every week my podcast, I'll just get Daniel to say everything I wanted to say on the podcast, and I'll just sit here. That's great. Basically, I've been sick all week, so I've been doing nothing but watching movies. But the only 2 notable ones I want to mention are John Carter from 2012, which is basically a forgotten film at this point, I think. It's a movie that Disney put out that they basically just distanced themselves from totally. Of course, it's based on John Carter of Mars, that old Edgar Rice Burroughs series, which is one I'm quite fond of. I've read a lot of the books. It's a really fucking solid adaptation. Changes a few things here and there, but it does it in a really good way. A lot of great actors in it. The special effects are really good. Great CGI, still holds up better than The Phantom Menace at this point. And I guess maybe The Phantom Menace contributed to fatigue for the viewer, and they didn't want to see this film maybe. And also probably most people aren't familiar with the subject or the source material. So that's probably why it failed. It's a great movie. Like, I really enjoyed it. It's a really great adaptation. It mixes sci-fi with sword and sandal, and it's just really well done. Like, just incredibly well done. And it's kind of a hard Disney film, like the Pirates of the Caribbean films were.
There were a lot of issues. I mean, the film didn't get great reviews. I haven't seen it. I would like to see it. It's kind of on my list of like eventually I will sit down and watch that kind of movies. But let me ask you, like, take everything you know about Edgar Rice Burroughs out of your head.
Mm-hmm.
You see a movie called John Carter, and you're not a movie nerd who follows like, what is that movie about?
Yeah.
Now tell me, imagine you see a movie called A Princess of Mars.
Yeah.
Which movie are you going to want to go see? You know
Princess
what I mean?
Princess of Mars, and the Asylum there, who do all the big budget ripoffs, actually made Princess of Mars with Tracy Lords, and I think Antonio Sabata Jr.
Well, that sounds like a version I need to see.
Yeah,
it's actually one of those things where I remember reading a lot of think pieces when it was like, why did this movie fail this hard? Because it was kind of forgotten upon release. I mean, it wasn't like, it was just like, it was just gone, I
couldn't find it here anywhere in any video store. There was some sort of Disney boycott or something in video stores where I couldn't find a DVD copy anywhere. I couldn't even find it in the fucking chain stores and stuff for rental or buy.
Disney has their like weird things they do with DVDs. Anyway, I actually have not seen the film, and I'm not going to talk a lot about it, but there were a lot of like basically really bad business decisions that Disney made around this film. It probably doesn't deserve the nasty reputation it has. All the reviews I saw from like people that I thought were respectable were basically like, it's silly, but it's fun. It's whatever, like it's not great. It's not terrible. It's just kind of, it is what it is. But most people also that I read didn't know the source material, so
Yeah, no, this is actually really good. It's a lot of fun. There are silly moments to it, but I mean that's actually more just world building and sort of brevity of character and stuff, like trying to build some interest in it. It's just kind of sad because it ends on sort of almost a cliffhanger of sorts, where it's like, I mean, the plan was obvious that this was going to be the next big trilogy or whatever, and they just fucking fumbled it totally. And then you get something like Johnny Depp's Lone Ranger with Armie Hammer a few years later, and how the hell? And that movie didn't really do. Did that movie make any money? I can't remember if it did.
I think it was like, I don't think it really made money. I think it was just kind of, basically I've completely avoided all of those like big budget things that look stupid. I mean, you know what I mean? I basically don't pay attention to big budget filmmaking anymore. Once you've got a budget of $150 million and you're making it for like the 4-quadrant audience and all that kind of thing, like you've basically removed any attempt of making something interesting. And I'm no longer interested in your product at that point, except like, okay, I'm going to go see this on the biggest screen possible, and it will be something fun for my eye holes. And that's about as far as I take any of those movies seriously. But if you're someone who enjoys, cinema, or at least for me, I mean, I'm not trying to judge anybody's like viewing habits. I'll still see the Marvel Cinematic Universe stuff, and I'll see the Batman movie, the Batman versus Superman movie when it comes out, probably. But there's just ultimately a lot of that stuff. Just I know exactly what it's going to be. It's going to be super populist, and I'm like less and less interested in things that are really populist these days because I just don't care. It's not. I don't begrudge its right to exist. I just don't care.
Yeah. But yeah, it is a good movie. I actually like it. I actually think it's pretty much a great movie. I like it a lot. I enjoyed the fuck of it, and I'm really sad that there's not going to be any sequels because the rights have been released back to the Edgar Rice Burroughs estates, so Disney is never making another one, which is sad. And it's just a lot of fun. It looks really good. People probably looking at it go, oh, it's derivative of Star Wars. Why would I want to watch it? It's not at all. It's actually got a little bit of originality to it, like basically just compared to all the sort of pablum that is out there as far as, big time fantasy, sci-fi, epic stuff in the last 10, 15 years or whatever. And it's just really sad that film didn't get the credit it's due. So I'd recommend people watch it. I mean, if you've got Netflix and you've got a nice little VPN service going for you in Netflix, before Netflix cracks down on that shit, jump over to the UK version of Netflix. It's streaming on there right now, so you can get it. And look, Paul showed up.
Paul showed up?
Sir. That's all right. We haven't got to the movies yet, so you're safe. You're safe. So how was it?
I didn't watch them, so you're good.
Okay, yeah. So how was the Joy Luck Club? Because that's what we speculated you were watching.
It was a little overrated, but it was good. It wasn't that bad. I watched Steel Magnolias before that, so I cried my eyes out for about 3 hours.
Dolly Parton.
Yeah, I know.
you wouldn't just cry your eyes out if you were right there in the room with her. She'd poke your eyes out.
Yeah, that's all right. As long as I'm staring at her tits while she does it, I'm fine with it.
That was the implication. But, and the other film I watched, I'll just say briefly, because actually I want to review this one on the podcast at some point, is Body Parts from 1991, starring Jeff Fahey. I just revisited this one on a whim because I saw it like years and years ago on VHS and forgot mostly everything in it. And, man, I don't really want to give my opinion on it other than I think it kind of dropped the ball a little bit. Actually, not a little bit, massively, but I don't want to get into details. But there's a lot of good in that film, though, so it's actually kind of worth checking out. And
you need to take Body Parts and mix it with the idea of like the $6 million man. So he's made of a murderer and biomechanical stuff, so he's like a superhuman killing machine. But he can't help it. He doesn't, that would be great.
But yeah, it's sort of the Hands of Orlac, sort of a remake of that, like the original film from the 30s, and then there was a remake in the 60s. Yeah, same idea though. It's like the idea of a body part transplanted onto someone who's had an accident, and the body part was the body part of a murderer. Actually, that even goes back down to Frankenstein, where
he was built of murderers. Yeah.
Paul, anything you've watched in the last little while you want to talk about?
No.
Excellent. Daniel, you're up.
All right, I got a few. Paul will be happy. I've watched nothing this week or a couple weeks that was made after 1978. So Paul would be eligible to watch all of these films.
Yay!
Although he might not like this first one because it involves subtitles. I've been trying to make a kind of resolution to watch some of the classics that I never watched during my misspent youth. And so I said I've never seen one of the founding things of the French New Wave, and so I watched Breathless by Jean-Luc Godard, 1960. It's one of the greatest films ever made. I'm not going to talk too much about it, but if you're worried that it's going to be kind of abstract or French or new wavy or whatever, don't. It's actually really, really effective and really well made. It really focuses on these characters of a kind of a Bonnie and Clyde kind of story, although it's 7 years before Bonnie and Clyde. And in fact, Godard was one of the filmmakers approached to direct the Bonnie and Clyde film that eventually went to Arthur Penn, I think. I can't remember.
Yeah, that was Arthur Penn, yep.
So a great film. If you haven't watched it, it's absolutely worth doing so, although I don't think it's streaming anywhere for free.
Probably not. You have to pay $8,000 for the Criterion DVD.
Yep.
There are other ways, and I found another way, but it is doable. I think it was on YouTube for a while, actually. Great film. Check it out if you haven't. That's all I'm going to say about that. Great little crime picture beyond anything else, The next film I watched was from the 50s, 54. It's called World Without End. This is a little sci-fi picture, kind of B-movie, about a group of astronauts who go out there trying to go around Mars and do like a little survey. They run into this temporal displacement event thingy and end up 400 years into the future. They land back on Earth. Basically, the story becomes a big, strong, manly man from the 1950s is really what you need to solve all of society's problems. Because all of the men of the far future, they bury themselves into the ground. All the women are not attracted to them at all. They have lost all their manly essence, and they are completely unable to actually fight off the mindless savages that actually run the surface. Actually, a pretty decent little B movie, but it definitely reflects the ideology of its time, and it's really worth checking out.
It actually sounds pretty good, considering I see all these guys with the really fancy hairdos and beards that think they're men but can't do anything, so maybe that might be it. But you don't have a fancy hairdo, you're just sexy. I'm not talking about you.
Yeah, well, I got a beard, so that's that.
So that goes basically back to the sort of running motif now that's been going through this podcast, where basically the whole plot of the film is that all this world really needs is a good deep dicking.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, I actually found it the title just because I was on Twitter and somebody was watching it. Like one of just the people I follow on Twitter was watching it and then like screen capped. And there's literally a moment in the film where one of the women who lives in this underground society basically like sees one of these guys with his shirt off and is like, "Oh, you're strong and muscular. unlike the men that we have, you know. And I mean, it's very overtly a film about like, you know, you need a big manly man and not one of these effete, you know, intellectuals to run society, you know.
Hey, you can be smart and muscular.
I'm in no disagreement with that, actually. Going on this same general principle, I watched this movie is on Netflix, and it's from 1954, directed by Otto Preminger, and this is River of No Return. This is the Robert Mitchum, Marilyn Monroe Western. This is a film that is you know, it's interesting watching these like completely unreconstructed Westerns, because I think if you're used to spaghetti Westerns where they're doing a little bit more kind of interesting things about like race and, you know, about the role of you know, the non-white people in the cast and that sort of thing, then watching one of the early ones, which is not a bad movie, but it definitely is you know, the red savages are just going to come and take your stuff if somebody steals your gun. That's the point of this film, because there's a card sharp who takes Robert Mitchum's gun, and then he ends up having to immediately leave his home that gets torched literally 2 minutes on screen time after this guy takes his gun, because the red savages have just destroyed everything in his life at that point. But he does get to bang Marilyn Monroe at the end, so yeah, there is that.
Oh, there you go.
I wasn't going to mention a movie, but I will, because I watched it and I actually really liked it. It's called Some Like It Hot, and it has Marilyn Monroe in it. And I've never watched a Marilyn Monroe film, and it was Jack Lemmon, his co-star, has to go drag and to hide
Tony
from the
Curtis.
mob. Yeah, Tony Curtis. Thank you, Tony Curtis. To hide from the mob, and they join a girls' band, and actually it's a real fun movie, and I watched Marilyn Monroe in it, and I was actually like, oh, wow, that's Marilyn Monroe. She actually is Dreamboat. Okay, cool.
There is
like her.
Some Like It Hot is one of the greatest comedies of all time.
It's really good, yes. I really like it.
There is an early Marilyn Monroe film. I can't think of the name right now, but it's early appearance by her. It's a film noir about it's basically a heist movie, and I can't think of the fucking title right now, but it's really fucking good, and she looks really fucking good in it. Like, I think that's the best she's ever looked in a movie. Really super hot.
Marilyn Monroe kind of gets typed. I mean, we kind of think of her as like gorgeous but dumb, but really she was the actress was very savvy about kind of what she picked and the way she did her thing. She just tended to. She got typecast to play ditzy blondes, you know. She's. I mean, Some Like It Hot. I mean, that's a phenomenal movie. I would recommend that to anybody. I'll also say I've actually the hotel where they shot Some Like It Hot is the Hotel Del. It's in Del Mar, California, and I have visited that hotel.
Cool.
It's actually like a tourist attraction. It's on God, what's the island? Coronado Island, where there's also a great brewery called Coronado Brewing. So. Go check out the hotel and the brewery. They're about a couple miles from each other. So, sorry to step on your Something Like It Hot, but I love that movie.
No, that's good. I wanted someone to step on it hard, yeah.
Yeah,
but that's good. That's good. I'm glad you like it too.
It's phenomenal.
Yay.
I also watched Switchblade Sisters, which is also on Netflix. This was the first time I had ever seen that. If you want a conflation of radical left-wing politics and girl gangs, that's kind of what this movie is. It's a fun watch. It's got some nifty action sequences, and it's about 90 minutes long. And hugely influential on Tarantino. I mean, he marks that as one of his favorite films. And all I'll say is anybody who says that Tarantino just rips off from things that he likes, I mean, he definitely apes some style, but it's also like to compare something like Switchblade Sisters and like Death Proof. These are such very, very different films thematically. And in terms of structure, I mean, it's night and day difference, So good film. Definitely check it out. It's worth watching.
Yeah, I think he released that on when Tarantino had that little imprint for a while there, where he was releasing DVDs. Rolling Thunder. Yeah.
The version that's on Netflix, if you watch it, actually has the Rolling Thunder and Miramax imprint across the front.
Right on.
One more, and you've seen this one. I got this one from you, Lee, and that was Heroes of the East.
Right on.
Super fun Shaw Brothers film. I had forgotten exactly what you said about it. I just kind of put it on, and the other night Shane and I were sitting and watching it. My wife, who spent a semester in China, so she was definitely like, "Where did they shoot this? Have I been there?" She had this kind of moment, and I'm like, "Hey, that's fine." But we both thoroughly enjoyed it. It's got a lot of fun stuff. The last hour is basically straight up action. It's very much just kind of fun, goofy, kind of kung fu action stuff. And I do have some thoughts about the film, but I think I'll kind of leave it at that for now. It's definitely worth watching. It wasn't quite the film I thought I was going to get when I put it on, but it's a lot of fun anyway, and it's worth checking out.
Yeah, the two halves of that film are like almost drastically different in a way, because it starts almost like a kind of a battle of the sexes romantic comedy kind of thing, and then it turns into a straight up like almost serious like here's kung fu styles being pitted against Japanese martial arts styles. It kind of drops the earlier plot to a large degree.
I mean, it drops the plot entirely. I mean, basically, the girl goes away and then she comes back and is like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." I went and like there's just completely the entire first half just motivates all the action stuff in the second half. Where I kind of thought, like, originally there's going to be this film that's kind of about, like, this man and his wife, like, learning to, like, come to love each other through their martial arts prowess, which I was like, this is kind of a fascinating little document. And it ends up basically being Chinese propaganda. So,
but it's probably the most liberal of Chinese propaganda, where it actually gives the Japanese, like, equal footing to a certain degree.
Right. They don't all have Hitler mustaches?
Exactly. That's the thing.
Oh, that's whole.
And man, I love the final guy's fucking crab style, where he's fighting like a fucking crab. That's fucking badass. But
no, I watched River of No Return and Heroes of the East back to back. Just kind of on Netflix. And Shayna definitely told me I would much rather watch the kung fu films than another 50s western. And I was like, all right, we're good. So I'll probably watch some more of those. There are quite a few of those on Netflix right now. So. I've got Crippled Avengers on for hopefully I'll get that watched before next week.
Right on.
Yeah. Fortunately, I didn't watch too much. I should have, but I didn't. I did have my time off after I rolled my truck, so I should have watched some things, but the kids were off too, so it was lots of Smurfs, stuff like that. So, hey, what can you do?
Well, Smurf it, I guess. Fuck.
Well, how dare you, like, actually care about your children?
Come on. I know. Son of a bitch.
Sacrifice your children on the altar if they must be destroyed on sight.
Yeah.
Don't tempt me. No, calm down.
All right, so I guess we'll move on to the actual films that we watched for this week.
That you guys watched.
Yeah, well, I assume you watched them at some point. So
I watched them once about 10 years ago, so we got it.
You should vaguely remember
we got this by the ass.
Yeah, we got this by the ass. That will be more pertinent in a couple episodes, by the way.
Oh, yes.
For the listeners out there. So we'll start off with 1971's She Killed in Ecstasy.
Kein Verbrechen, kein Verbrechen, kein Verbrechen, kein Verbrechen.
Du bist das zweite Schwein, das gestorben ist.
Wer ist diese Frau? Wer ist dieser Mann?
Dies hier ist das Endprodukt meiner Forschung.
Welche unbekannten und tödlichen Leidenschaften treiben diese Menschen in den Abgrund?
Ein toter Mann wurde für all diese Verbrechen verantwortlich gemacht.
Du Schwein! Du bist eine Ratte! Ich hasse dich!
Weiter. Ach, ich wollte Sie nicht erschrecken.
Was wollen Sie?
Tötet diese Frau in Ekstase vom Zwang ihrer Leidenschaften getrieben.
Liebling.
Sie kamen und haben alles vernichtet.
Inspektor, eben
Soeben ist die Leiche des Professors gebracht worden, der neulich bei Ihnen im Büro war. Über und über mit Stichen bedeckt. Die Leiche ist scheußlich zugerichtet.
Die Polizei folgt mit Grauen den blutigen Spuren.
Was ist das nur für ein Mensch, der all diese Taten begeht?
Ein harter, schockierender Film, der schonungslos die Abgründe menschlicher Begierden aufdeckt.
Written and directed by Jess Franco, starring Soledad Miranda as Miss Johnson, Fred Williams as Dr. Johnson, Ewa Stromberg as Dr. Crawford, Paul Muller as Dr. Franklin Houston, Howard Vernon as Professor Jonathan Walker, Horst Tappert as Polizen's inspector, I guess as police inspector and fucking...
The Polizei.
Yeah. Polizei inspector. Jess Franco himself is Dr. Donan, and then there's a couple other people. Who cares? Daniel, were you going to sort of give synopses of these?
Yeah, I'm gonna try to. I didn't write them down this time, but I'm gonna start actually trying to do plot synopses for, assuming to try to reach out to audiences that haven't seen these films.
I was gonna say this one is easier than the other one.
Oh, definitely.
You know what I mean?
Summarizing the plot of the other one, I basically end the plot summary in the first 15 minutes of the film.
Yeah.
So basically, this is a film where a young, handsome doctor, Dr. Johnson, is doing medical experiments on human fetus hybrids, is stopped in doing so by a horrifying review board that finds his actions reprehensible, despite being largely reasonable human beings who just don't want horrifying Mengele-type medical experiments from being done. And the young doctor, so despondent over being vilified in the media and by the villagers and by his profession, despite receiving copious amounts of nudity and sex from his gorgeous wife, decides to slit his wrists. His wife, despondent over his death, takes out revenge on the members of the medical board by killing them one by one, usually in the heat of sexual ecstasy, hence the title. The film ends with her deciding to take her husband's corpse and loading it in a vehicle and then crashing into a ravine or something.
Off a cliff.
Off a cliff, yes. So, and then you get the police inspector who's been kind of idly following behind, with doing absolutely nothing of any importance, and in fact poo-pooing the very idea that these people are actually under threat of death. Basically making a statement to the audience that the reason this woman did this was because she had no control over her actions.
Yeah.
Which I think is I have some thoughts about that. But yeah. How do you feel about that plot summary there, guys?
That's very good.
That's very good. Yep. Yeah. This is.
I just want to make sure. I want to see how I can convince my wife to wear tin cans as a bra. I want to find that out. It's very important.
It helps if it helps to be in the year 1970.
Okay. We'll have to go back. Have the Wayback Machine.
So, like, it's. I'll just start off by saying it's no. It's really anyone who's followed Franco. It's no secret that he had a big love of Soledad Miranda, and he was planning on making her his big star. And this movie just gazes at her for the entire film and uses her beauty to its fullest extent. Like, she just looks fucking hot. Yes. No matter what she's doing in this film, it's absolutely stunning. You can't take your eyes away from her. Just beautiful all the time. I mean, even if this film had the most inconceivable bullshit plot, like a lot of Franco films tend to have, you could still watch it all the way through just for Soledad.
And her atmosphere has the same kind of vampire Lesbos atmosphere when she's going around kind of the castle-looking thing, walking around and stuff. She has the cape on, and she has almost like a rabid wolf or tiger kind of look to her when she kills in this film. And it's hot. Let's just say that. There you go.
Oh yeah. And I mean, this movie basically. It was filmed in 1970 with Vampiros Lesbos and a couple other films at that point. So it actually does retain a lot of the same cast and a lot of the same production and crew and everything. So the soundtrack album itself features cuts from Vampiros Lesbos, this film, and I believe one other film. I can't remember what it is at the moment, but this was all done basically in 1 year. So this is like Franco just going nuts and making films.
Yeah, I mean, this was literally made like a couple of weeks after Vampiros Lesbos. Like they wrapped one, and then this. I mean, it's essentially the same cast, and I that's how I filmed this film. Actually, I was when I was kind of researching Vampiros Lesbos when we were doing that one, I saw this title. I mean, She Killed in Ecstasy. Like, how amazing a title is that?
Yeah.
And I thought, like, what is this film? I saw it referenced. I read the Wikipedia page and went, I need to watch this. Found it, watched it, loved it, and said, okay, we got to do this on the show. So I can force you guys to. I'm becoming something of a fan of Jess Franco, which I did not expect to happen. I think
after watching Zombie Lake, I can't blame you.
Yeah.
I can't believe you guys started me on Zombie Lake. You guys are assholes. That's all I'm gonna say.
Well, like, look at it this way. You had nowhere else to go but up after that. But.
Well, you did Zombie Lake, which I actually might revisit Zombie Lake. Oasis of the Zombies can go fuck itself, but, you know...
It's waiting for you in hell, Daniel.
Yes. Yeah, I really what I found fascinating about Franco in general is he really has an eye for imagery, and he blurs the line between fantasy and reality. Even in She Killed in Ecstasy, which has no specific supernatural element. You know, I mean, this is a straight up like this woman's just going around murdering people. Yeah. But certain elements of it, you don't know if it's really happening in real life or if it's in her head. There's a particular sequence where, like, kind of physically couldn't have happened the way that it's shown on screen, and so you do kind of get the idea that maybe this is like just a revenge fantasy that she's having this whole time. This blurring of the lines, usually I find that to be off-putting in a film. You know, when it is like, oh, is it real or is it not? But I think it's subtly done. These two films both kind of have that element of, like, we don't quite know what's exactly happening. And we're kind of following along the psychology more so than the kind of literal plot of the thing. You know, I think it works on a psychological level. I've actually watched this film 2 or 3 times now because I find it just kind of fascinating on a cinematic level. This film and Vampiros Lesbos, and then to a lesser extent, well, I'm not to spoil it. The other film we're going to talk about, I think it makes you wonder what this guy would have done with a budget. You know, what this guy would have done with like, you know, because you look at somebody like
he would have bought more naked women.
Yeah. you think about somebody like De Palma. You know, De Palma doesn't do anything that that Franco wasn't doing. You know, to a large degree, certainly in his early stuff. So you do kind of wonder, like, if Franco had, you know, instead of making 4 films in 4 months, if he had a little more time and energy and a little bit more money, you wonder what he might have been able to accomplish. And that's kind of where I land on that. But I love this film, and I could talk about it for a long time, but I'll let you guys talk. So.
No, you should, because I got nothing to say. You covered it pretty well. I mean, you're like spot on to what I thought. So it's like, wow, okay, good. You watched it way more than I have now, too, so you are the aficionado right now.
I am the She Killed in Ecstasy expert at this point.
Exactly.
I really enjoyed this. Honestly, out of all the films from Franco that I've seen, and I've seen a little bit more than a handful in my life, this is actually my favorite now. Like, I hadn't seen this one before, and this is probably his most comprehensible one that you can just get into and follow without having to really worry about much. There is a little bit of maybe ambiguity here and there, but I don't know if it's so much intentional as it is maybe just sort of a budgetary kind of thing where, oh, we can't go back and reshoot that, so we had to leave maybe something in. I was for a while there wondering if she had, actually procured her husband's body and was keeping it in her house, or if she was just imagining it and talking to nothing. Because there was a shot later on in the film where she's by his body, and then it zooms in close to her head, and then it pans out again. And I was like, oh, they're going to pan out, and he's not going to be on the bed. And it's going to show that she's totally, not only she's totally bonkers, she's seeing things too. And, and that would have been, actually, that probably would have made the movie even better for me if I had seen that. But still, the idea that she somehow managed to steal her ex-husband's body and keep it in her house, okay, great. The detective is fucking useless. The character feels like he's just put in there to basically mock the institution of the police, which I think is probably sort of a theme that probably runs through Spanish and Italian films to quite a degree. It's either you mock the police, you mock the government, you mock the church, because those are all the institutions that have oppressed those countries for years and years, especially like during World War II and then after World War II. So there you go. You definitely see that sort of thing flow through a lot of these films. I actually liked the performances. I thought they were fairly well done. Shout out to Howard Vernon for going nude and showing his meat and potatoes for very briefly before she cut him off. And man, she really got into the killings too. When she was killing a dude, she immediately went to the crotch and started chopping. I mean, and again, just focused on Soledad Miranda. Great performance. Major shame that she died so young, and this was basically her last film, essentially.
Yeah, and there was Lena Romney after that we had, and she wasn't as hot.
Well, not only that, but she wasn't a great actress.
A great actress, yeah.
But Soledad Miranda actually had the potential to be like a breakout star and become like a really great European actress. But
she's like Carolyn Monroe or whatever.
Yeah.
Actually, I think she's actually a better actor than Carolyn Monroe.
Yeah, Carolyn Monroe's good, but I think
Soledad is even better.
Yeah, I think she is.
Whatever.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
She has such a presence like this. Like, I mean, and it's easy to kind of. Well, she's gorgeous. I mean, she's obviously gorgeous.
Yeah.
You know, but she's not just gorgeous.
But there's a mysterious kind of atmosphere.
There's this fascinating quality to her. She has this real like star quality screen presence that animates both Vampiros Lesbos and this. You know, to a large degree. I mean, you just can't take your eyes off her. You said that earlier, Lee, and she's the reason I was like I have to like see just another film she's in, and I think. Really, an evening with Vampiros Lesbos and then this is a great
it's a great double bill. It is.
The funny thing is, the one that I watched is an old bootlegs DVD that I got. It's swept around. It's either in German and the subtitles are in French, or it's in French and the subtitles are in German. So I was fucked either way. So it was more just like watch and enjoy the fantastic imagery, unfortunately.
Yeah, and it was a German-Spanish production, and honestly, you don't necessarily need this dialogue all that much, because there's not a lot going on dialogue-wise. I mean,
I watched it the first time with a subtitle track that was not lined up properly with the film. I found a subtitle track, and there was a long story behind me, like finally tracking down a synced-up version of this. So I was like, okay, I'll put it on, and it'll be 5 seconds off, and I'll figure it out. And then it gets further and further off the version I had, and it just became like you'd watch a scene, and then 3 minutes later you'd find out what was going on in that scene. It definitely is an interesting experience in terms of watching a film. What I find is like actually knowing what Howard Vernon is saying in that scene to the reporter, and like where he's talking about youth culture, and he's talking about actually seeing that, and then seeing him kind of go up to Miss Johnson and want to fuck her and that sort of thing. Like, it informs his character in this kind of interesting way. And I mean, there's a lot of stuff that like this is a delivery system for like ketchup stained blood and tits, essentially. And yet there's so much more to this film than that, and that's kind of the mark of an artist, and that's what draws me to this film, honestly, is that it's so much more than it needs to be. I think also in terms of like the kind of flirtatious way that she seduces Eva Stromberg in that sequence. There's a definite sense of kind of we're not allowed to actually talk about what we're doing, but we both know we want to fuck each other, sort of thing. And she literally invites her up like, I've got tons of books. Come on up, and I will show you my books.
I got a great book. It's opening right now.
I've got a whole library I want to show you, and that shot with the sherry glass where
where the kiss,
during the kiss is I think this really fascinating way of teasing the audience, and again, like really bold imagery. It really kind of speaks to like, I mean, it's not complicated to do this, but the decision to do this really like speaks to the film. I also just love the fact that it's fundamentally like, how easy would it be to make a film that was about this unjustly killed guy who's, you know, and then his wife goes out and kills these bad people, but to invert that and make her evil is, I think, an interesting choice, you know, especially since it's all in German. Which you know, really, I don't know. Like,
that what it was? That what it was? It was in German, and it was my subtitles were French. Okay, it was one of the other ones that I couldn't fucking remember because I have a couple of Jean Roland films that are all subtitled or in French and then subtitled in German too. So I don't know what's going on in any of these films. I just look for tits.
The version I watched was in German with English subtitles.
Okay. I need to buy this film then because I need to get some of that more plot other than just the sex and the killing, which I'm fine with. But if I can get more, hey, that's great.
Like a lot of his films, there's different cuts out there. You can find anything from about 70 to 80 minutes, depending on what release you find. This one isn't really cut down all that badly. I think there might be a couple cuts that cut most of the nudity out and stuff, but that's about it. Probably a U.S. cut probably does that. This film actually borrows a lot from his earlier films, like Diabolical Dr. Z, Miss Mutra, I guess is the way you pronounce it. The Bride Wore Black, and one I've seen that I like, Venus in Furs, starring Klaus Kinski, by the way.
Well, that's definitely one on my to-watch list then. Actually, let me add it right now.
Yeah, it's got similar sort of revenge plots. The idea of a group of people killing someone and then someone taking revenge on them and stuff like that. So a lot of that stuff, a lot of the ideas Franco had in those early films is sort of brought to the forefront here and made better, I think, to a certain degree. This was released on DVD in 2000 by Synapse Films. Severin Films recently released this April 14th, 2015 for Blu-ray in the United States, so you can find it there. This is definitely one to look out for. There's a lot of good stuff going on in this film. This is probably his most coherent production, honestly, for me, honestly. Like I said, this is my favorite one I've seen from him.
If you speak German, you can watch this on YouTube. Like you can literally just sit and watch it.
There's like 4 versions on YouTube.
Yeah, it's all over the place. The hard part for me was finding a version that I could sync with the subtitles. So you know.
Yeah. I do have a question though. When he seduces Eva Stromberg up into the apartment, and she's posing as she's posing as a lesbian painter. Did she actually paint those paintings, or did she buy them?
That's up to interpretation of the viewer, I think. You know, ultimately.
Yeah.
You know,
because I like the idea that she's been planning this revenge so long that she actually went and painted these amazing paintings and set them up in the apartment.
You don't really get a sense of her background, but I mean, obviously, if she's married to this like kind of handsome doctor, this kind of brilliant scientist guy, even if he's like doing awful things, I mean, I think you get the sense that he is legitimately brilliant, and she's not just arm candy. Like she actually has. I mean, she planned out all this stuff. She's doing all this stuff, and I have no problem believing. You know, I mean, ultimately, I mean, it's there, it's superfluous, but I have no problem believing that she actually does read this stuff, and she has all these books, and she painted these paintings, and it's just like this is a peek into her real life. I mean.
Yeah. She doesn't just spend her time working at Walmart or anything, you know.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I would believe that she legitimately is trying to seduce this woman. I kind of believe that. That moment feels authentic, even though she has ulterior motives, I guess, is kind of where I'm landing.
Although I will say it's kind of jarring. At the end, the final person she goes after, of course, is Jess Franco's character. And it's like Jess Franco comes into his house and finds this woman dead on the floor. It's like, my wife! You had no idea I had a wife throughout the entire film.
I literally went and like Googled, like, was I supposed to know who this person was?
Yeah.
And she looks similar enough to
I thought it was
Miranda, and I thought it was like, did she die? Like, did she kill herself in this? And like, are we basically running on this like logic of like she then frames Jess Franco for the murders?
Yeah.
But no, he has another fate at hand. Probably if I'm gonna die, there are worse ways. Let's just leave it at that.
And kudos to Jess Franco for if my character's going to have a wife in this film and it can't be Soledad Miranda, I'm going to get one who looks just like her and stick her in there for.
And I'm gonna tie myself to a chair and have Celine Miranda just rub herself all over me. No, do it longer. I put a 20-minute mag in that camera. Just keep going. We're good.
Just keep going. No stabbing yet. No stabbing.
I want to make sure I get this right, so just keep filming.
Yeah. Jess Franco, you lovely perverted man, you.
Yes.
All right, so I think we've basically said all we need to say about this one. This one's definitely highly recommended, so we can move on to the next one from 1974, A Virgin Among the Living Dead. Directed by Jess Franco. Depending on what version you watch, also there are inserts by Gene Roland from years later, and there are some additional sequences from someone called Pierre Curut, who I've never heard of, and written by Jess Franco and Paul de Ailes. This one stars Christina von Blanc as Christina Benson, Brett Nichols as Carmency, Rosa Palomar as Aunt Abigail, Ann Libert as the Queen of the Night, Howard Vernon as Uncle Howard, Paul Muller as Ernesto Pablo Renier, who is Christina's father in the film, Jess Franco as Basilio, and Nicole Gertrude or Gertard as the female doctor. And also, if you've watched the extended version with a lot of inserts in it of the erotic kind, Alice Arno is the princess of eroticism. And I'll hand it over to you, Daniel, to try to describe the plot on this fucking one.
Do it!
So, this is a film where the lovely young Christina, who lives in an English boarding school, finds that her father has passed away and now needs to go to a reading of the will to her distant relatives whom she has not met before, apparently. Wanders into this kind of stately mansion where crazy fucking things are happening. There's a lot of conflation of decadent European sexuality with a decadent European bloodsuckery. There is a lot of kind of repressed gothic horror gore. Some incest themes happen. There is Jess Franco himself as a man who at one point tries to point at a dead rat, and I think he probably fucked it. That's just sort of the way this film goes. And some vaguely... Some very fascinating imagery that has very little connection with any kind of semblance of a plot happens, and then at the end, possibly Christina either goes mad or is taken over by supernatural powers, or both. It's left ambiguous, and I think that the lake from Zombie Lake appears in this film. So,
I am almost 100% certain that is true.
Yeah, the award for best fake cough goes to Cavancia. That was horrible. That's the worst part of the film. I hate it.
But yeah, this one's an interesting production. It's a Spanish-French production this time around. This one goes by a lot of different fucking names. You thought fucking the first one had a couple different versions. This one is chopped to shit and released over and over again. It's known as A Comme Apocalypse, Among the Living Dead, Christina chez les Morts Vivants, Christina Princess de l'Eroticisme, Christina Sex Princess, Le Labyrinth, La Nuit des Étoiles Filantes, Los Sueños Rotos de Christine, Zombie 4, and Zombie Holocaust, which confuses me because I've seen another film called Zombie Holocaust, Dr. Butcher, M.D.
I was going to say, that's actually not the real name of that film either. It's Dr. Butcher, M.D., yeah.
Yeah. This was released in 1978 later on as I Désert de Erotica de Christine with the new insert featuring Alice Arnaud, which are basically a lot of softcore sex with body doubles to sort of sub in for Howard Vernon, thankfully, and some of the other cast members who weren't around to refilm shit 10 years later, or 4 years later, I guess. But yeah, this one is where the first one had a comprehensible plot that you could follow all the way through. This one is full of dream imagery and confusing bullshit that I could not follow even after watching it twice through today and watching it previously earlier this week. And yeah, I'll just throw over to any of you guys for thoughts for this one at first, because I was thoroughly confused by this film. So
you started off, Dana. You're good at this.
Where I land on this one is the plot is not the point. And the way I know the plot is not the point is, A, it's completely incomprehensible, and B, so the whole reason she's brought into this manor, or this house, is to read the will, and the reading of the will is the intentionally most boring section of bullshit.
Is that bad? That is so bad.
I mean, I wonder, I kind of land on, I think it's intentionally bad, because, Franco's character is, falling asleep during the, and I think that's him, winking at the audience, going, yes, I know, you're not here for this. We don't care, the whole point of this film is the surreal, almost un chien andalou style, just surreal imagery. And ultimately the film lands on, the last 20 minutes or so really delivers that. There is some really striking imagery in the last 20 minutes. So I think going into this and looking at a plot is not the point. I think really what you're supposed to do is to be swept up in this kind of situation, in this kind of general, decadence, and the mistress who's, literally chewing on the blind girl's breasts, and,
Yeah. Come and drink some blood.
It's less about a story and more about oh my god, I ended up in this place, and what the fuck is going on? That's the whole.
I was just say, even the first entrance into the, you get into the family and start talking to the Uncle Howard. It's so over the top and kind of disconnected from real humanity. It's just so, it's what am I actually watching here? The contact between her trying to be a human and say, hi, it's my uncle, and he's just going off on these tangents about what he's playing and this.
He's literally quoting from the Bible. He's quoting from Proverbs, right? Or Isaac, yeah.
Isaac, yeah. Verse 777, something like that.
Yeah. Ultimately, it's just, it feels almost like it's just assembled out of somebody just threw ideas at a screen and just picked them out randomly, and it's just sort of oh, this will be a creepy image, and there's no point. I showed a little bit of this to a friend of mine, just kind of I was like, oh, I'm doing this like 70s horror film that was, this German horror film for the podcast tonight, and she came over and I just kind of threw it on and was like, oh yeah, let's get past the first 20 minutes and get into just watch the imagery. And she's like, so how are these people related? I'm like, that's not the point. Don't.
Don't
worry about it. Like, it's crazy. Like, the whole point is like, you see a woman in this film, you're gonna get to see her tits later. That's the point of this film.
And Bush.
And Bush in the case, yeah.
That will reading. Here's the thing. It's not even a long, drawn out, boring will reading. Because with the English dubbing, the guy is trying to throw so much information in quickly to catch up with the lips. It is amazing how something so quickly read can be so fucking boring.
It becomes a Micro Machine commercial.
I wonder if listening to this or watching it with the in the original language, like watching it in German and then with subtitles, I wonder if you'd be able to follow the plot better. I wonder if it's like a bad dubbing just kind of distracts so much from this film that it's just, because I did watch this one. I watched it once last week, but I was drinking, and I was drinking fairly heavily and just kind of lost track of everything.
Right, yeah, that's basically every time I've watched this film, I've done that. Yeah.
And then I rewatched it sober over the course, like kind of like 30 minutes at a time. Just kind of like, yeah, it's like I kind of get generally kind of what's going on, but like there's a long sequence where she goes swimming in the nude, and I'm like, and then these two guys show up, and I'm like,
oh, it's a girl.
What happened again? Like, why are we, And I think it's supposed to represent like the way that the kind of villagers feel about this kind of abstract family kind of.
I was just about to say, is this
on the hill?
Is this the part where the villagers get their pitchforks and torches? What's going to happen here, people?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel like it's there's a lot of implication, and I feel like the writing just kind of like it's trying to play with some imagery, but it just kind of doesn't, like there's not quite enough connective tissue.
The biggest thing that I liked about the film is I thought it was going to be another generic zombie film when I first bought it, because I bought it as Zombie 4. It says it on the VHS that I have, it's Zombie 4 Virgin Among the Living Dead, and then it's like, oh no, it's kind of like this nuancy gothic horror vampire thing, stuck in a dream. And I'm like, okay, that's better. I like that better.
So the version you watched, did it actually have the zombie inserts into it, Paul?
No, it doesn't have any zombie inserts, because mine is, I guess it's because it's an old VHS, they just use the stock cover.
Mm-hmm, because they did do that. I've seen instances people say, like, they were really confused because they bought it thinking there were zombies in it, and then they got, like, the U.S. cut version or whatever, or they got some of the original version that had no zombies in it at all.
It does have a picture of the zombie on the back of the sleeve case.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it does. I actually had two versions of this, and one was a longer version, which might have had that, but I put it in the VHS player. It started the film, and I heard, yeah, and then it popped, and it just broke my film in half. So apparently, that wasn't the one I was meant to watch.
Apparently not.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the producer basically re-released this and got Gene Roland to direct and add new footage to this, which is all the zombie footage. And this was right around the same time they were doing Zombie Lake. And I don't think the pond sequences were filmed at that point. I think they were definitely still filmed back in 74 or 3 or whatever. But they obviously used the same fucking locations that they did years ago when they did the reshoots. I really like the shots where with her father with the rope around his neck where he peers to her and talks to her.
That's creepy.
Oh, yeah, that's creepy as fuck.
Oh, actually, I love it. His leaving there from the table is awesome.
Yes, I was about to say that is like an awesome shot. Like actually, I was like, okay, this is the best shot in the film, where the mistress of the night or whatever comes and grabs him and just slowly pulls him back. And I was like, wow.
I was strangely reminded of like the old Christmas story, Christmas Carol film with the ghost visiting and stuff. It had that creepy atmosphere to it that I liked so much. I was like, I'd love this if this was black and white right now. It'd be even cooler.
Good. Yeah, no, I actually, this film would probably work better in black and white. Honestly, I think it would.
Yeah. It does have that sort of 60s Mario Bava gothic vibe in it a little bit. You get that stuff because it's the weird family, estranged family, weird characters that the villagers shun, that whole kind of idea, and some innocent person walking into a fate that they can't change and stuff like that. Like those are all sort of gothic tropes that are definitely used in this film. But of course, they throw in all the dream imagery and all the sex.
As soon as I saw the dark-haired, really hot, Mistress of the Night, doing the magic, like the seance almost to herself at the beginning of the film, it reminded me of Bay of Blood, with the other woman from Bay of Blood, the way she does her seances and stuff. It reminded me of that a little bit at first.
Well, I don't think that was the version that we watched, Dan. I don't remember that.
I don't remember that, but I don't remember Bay of Blood all that well, quite honestly. So
all I know is this guy has smashed some hard black penises in my time too. So don't worry about it.
Oh God, yeah. You smashed the black phallus.
The black phallus, you will doom yourself and get luck that is bad. Oh, good for you. That is horrible.
Yeah,
I've always had good luck smashing some big black cocks. I don't know. I'm very good at it.
Every time I have a black cock in my life, I just say, treat it nicely, and life will be better. That's sort of...
That is the line that made the movie for me, honestly.
So should this be the tagline? Should this really be the tagline, like the subtitle for the film? Once you smash black, you never go back, because
that's it.
When she does that, she sets herself on a course for
you will
misery.
Be doomed.
Yeah.
What kind of luck? Bad luck. Oh, what kind of bad luck? Really bad luck.
Because, like mentioning like the final scene where she goes down into the pond with the Mistress of the Dark, yeah, whatever her name is. That reminded me of like a Fulci ending. Like that felt directly like a Fulci sort of ending to a film.
My stomach turned because I thought Bob would be in there for a second. Thanks. Thanks.
Bob.
Oh, he's gonna haunt me now. Oh, thanks a lot.
But this was pre-Fulci horror too, so it's like wonder if Fulci kind of seen this one and was like, yeah, I like that kind of weird, mysterious, ambiguous ending. Let's put that in all my films in the 80s.
I mean, the end of this film is completely a mental clusterfuck, and I kind of like it that way.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me. I mean, there are all kinds of films that just sort of like end on this surreal note, and I mean, this is really something where I think it really is just meant to be a series of vaguely connected imagery. It's supposed to be kind of a descent into madness.
Well, yeah, I really didn't want a Hammer horror ending where you beat the vampires. You did this. I don't need that. I've had that too many times. So I like the fact that this was more of a mindfuck.
This is almost like Carnival of Souls to a certain degree. Have you seen that, Paul? Carnival of Souls?
I've seen it a couple times. Unfortunately, again, shit-faced. I own it in like 17 different formats, so I should be able to watch it one of these days sober.
But that's kind of what the ending reminded me of. Like, it's kind of left up in the air of whether she was maybe even dead at the start of the film,
right,
to a certain degree, right? So, I sort of got that vibe, and I don't know, maybe I was just kind of watching this film and trying to pull like better films into it and try to compare just to make me enjoy it a bit better.
Well, I could definitely see this film could expand on itself more and be a little longer and get a little bit more into depth and plot of how, who killed the father and this and that and why. But if you explain it too much, you might lose some of the mystique and atmosphere and weirdness of the film.
Yeah. Because the base original cut of this film, like the director's cut of this film, is essentially like 72, 76 minutes, something like that. Like that was
it's barely over an hour, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. When they did the inserts, especially the softcore scenes that they stuck into it, they run it up to 90 minutes. So there's almost a half hour of extra shit thrown into this when they did the re-releases. It was released in VHS in the United States by Wizard Video, which was Charles Band's old VHS release company that he sort of revived in later years.
Full Moon?
Yeah, Full Moon. The film was released on DVD in the United States by Image Entertainment, which is sort of a low-budget release company, in 2003. But they do some pretty good DVD releases, or they did anyway. I don't know if they're still doing them or not anymore. August 2013 was a Blu-ray release from Redemption Video, I guess. There is a detailed list of the erotic version of this film and the zombie version of this film, but fuck it, I won't get into it. If people are really interested, they can look up this information on IMDb. But there are some vastly different versions of this film, and really, if you can find them and watch them, it's up to you to decide which is the better version. This film, honestly, I can't say I'd recommend it.
No.
It's just a little too bereft of meat, and it's a little too confusing. There's some cool stuff. Like I said, the stuff with her father with the rope around his neck, showing up and talking to her.
Just if you've got it in front of you, watch the last 20 minutes. Like just like you won't miss anything really. I mean, there's some nudity. I mean, there's some cool images here and there. There's some cool stuff, but it's ultimately not a movie. It's just a sequence of kind of cool images. So just turn it on, turn the sound off, enjoy. Like that's what this film is.
Carmencia didn't have so much of a horse face. It'd be a little bit better. I mean, she did have a little.
I wonder if some of these films worked better in drive-in. Like the whole thing was to go. Like you're not really paying attention. You're making out during the movie, and so you just kind of look up and go like, oh, creepy, and then that's it. So
it's creepy, and then you hold her close and you look up, oh, naked. You want to do anything? Yeah, sure. Okay, then you do it. Then you come back, oh, creepy again. Woohoo! We're gonna get.
They're having sex up in the screen. Let's do this in the car. Okay. Look back up 5 minutes later. Oh, she's stabbing him in the groin. You want to do that part? Yeah, I really do, honey. Maybe that part doesn't work so much, but
not so much.
You can find a penknife somewhere,
I mean, if that's your thing, we don't judge on this podcast.
No.
Rip your shirt off, cut your tit, be like, suck on it. You know you want to. Blood's good.
Actually, forgot to mention that in the previous film, I liked how Howard Vernon's character was kind of like secretly a sadomasochist.
Oh yeah.
And he was like, hit me, beat me. And she's like, okay, I'm right into that because that's what I was gonna fucking do to you anyway, bitch.
Well, thanks, because you're making my job easier.
Yep.
It wasn't she on top of him, calling them names like pigs and whores and sluts?
Yeah.
And see, how do I get that to happen? Never mind.
You need to get on a medical board and disgrace a young doctor of an attractive wife.
I'm doing it right now, son. Fucking now.
But so I think we said all we need to really say about these two films.
Unfortunately, I didn't say much. It's been a long time since I've watched these films.
No, you said more than you usually do, so that's fine.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. So I don't know what we're going to be doing the next couple episodes. We have a master list now that we're sort of adding to every once in a while, so I think maybe we'll pick from something from there. Episode 50, the official episode 50. I know it says we have 56 or something now on the site, but those are the unofficial episodes. Out of the official episodes, our episode 50 is going to be the big one. It's going to be Dawn of the Dead. We're going to be talking about the 1978 Dawn of the Dead, George Romero. That's probably going to be a big podcast. Going to be long, lots of music bites, sound bites stuck in, and all that shit. So it's going to be.
And I will watch it.
Yeah, and Dan's going to watch at least one version of the film, and Paul has been trying to track down the different versions of the film and actually watch them. So he's actually doing research for this one, guys. So you actually definitely want to listen to that podcast and hear that.
I have actually watched all 4 versions that are on the DVD of Dawn of the Dead, but that was back in, I guess, 2007 or so when I actually got the DVD from Netflix at that point. I don't own that DVD, or I would just watch at least 2 versions of it, but I'm planning on just probably watching the theatrical cut because I don't know. I've watched them all. There's not that much of a difference. It's just sort of I mean, it's interesting, but it's not.
I like to watch the one extended version, so I get to see Captain Rhodes playing a security guard.
Oh yeah. Well, we'll get into that in the actual episode, but
unfortunately I was very upset. I got the version of it where it is Argento and Romero together in the same DVD.
Oh,
and my friend sent it to me, and it's the wrong region. I can't play it, so.
Oh, shitty.
I kind of wanted to listen to all the Goblin Chaos, but oh well.
Yeah.
Oh well.
But we're going to be getting to that. So we'll go to Daniel. Tell everyone about your Doctor Who podcast, sir.
Absolutely. You can, if you like listening to me talk about, well, I don't talk about any of this stuff on my Doctor Who podcast, but if you like listening to me talk about weird shit, and you're a Doctor Who fan, a classic and new series, you can go to Oi Spaceman, that's OI Spaceman, all one word, .libsyn.com, and check out the podcast I do with my wife. And we talk about kind of weird politics and sexy stuff and Doctor Who. That's kind of what we do. We did. I had a very overtly sexual thing I said about Peter Capaldi and Matt Smith on a recent episode. So go back and check out our Husbands of River Sawing episode to find out what I had to say.
And Paul, where can people find you on the internet?
Oh, right now you can check me out on YouTube on PA Brew News and on Facebook PA Brew News for beer and whatnot, etc. Then the other thing would be Funeral Dust 666 on YouTube for some underground black metal right now. Back Mountain Arts and Crafts on Facebook for artsy craftsy stuff. Bye.
Cool. And the bumper at the end of this, we're going to go with some music. And Daniel thankfully supplied me with the link, so I didn't have to go search for it, but it was the one I intended to use. We're going to couple pieces of music from Manfred Hubler and Schwab, who did the music as well for Vampiros Lesbos. They followed through again for She Killed in Ecstasy, so we're going to use a couple selections from that, stick it in there. Hopefully YouTube won't be a bitch and mute the YouTube version like they did for our best of episode.
They did. Son of a bitch.
I had to fucking re-upload it and put a different piece of music in. But so that will be that. At the bumper, you'll get all the information, where to go, where to find us on Podbean. From Podbean, you can find us on fucking iTunes. Give us a 5-star rating. Give us a review. Give us a great review or a shitty review. We'll read it on the fucking podcast, man. You'll be famous. You'll be famous for crapping on this podcast. So thanks everyone for listening, and we will be back next week hopefully with another fine episode. Thank you, Daniel.
And maybe a movie god.
Maybe a movie god, yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah, we didn't want to stick one in this time around because we figured we'd have enough to talk about. So there we go. Good night, guys.
Thanks a lot.
Bye!
Sie begehen Gotteslästerung.
Scharlatan.
Johnson, Sie sind ein Verbrecher.
Ausgestoßen. Man müsste sie umbringen.
Sie sind ein Tier, Johnson.
Thank you for listening to They Must Be Destroyed on Sight. For our other episodes, links to Daniel, Paul, and Lee's other stuff, and links to some great podcasts of similar interest, visit us at tmbdos.podbean.com. There you can leave us comments on the site or directly email us. We listen and respond to everything. Thank you. Drive through.